Greetings and welcome to step 22 of our awakening in 30 steps. Today's contemplation is on exchanging self and other, exchanging self-preoccupation for altruism, exchanging self-enclosure for a sense of universality, exchanging the meanness for the we-ness. Whatever way you want to put it, couldn't be a more pressing and timely reflection for us human beings and all sentient creatures on this planet right now, teetering on the edge of self-imposed mass extinction. Today's contemplation is exchanging self-orbiting gravitational pulls for altruistic, for living with the heart inside out. And so today, let me just preface today's reflection by reminding us, especially those that are more familiar with the steps, that we are combining two very powerful altruistic or compassion training methodologies. One is called the 7-step cause and effect method, attributed to Master Asanga. Why is it called 7 steps cause and effect? Because they take 6 reflections which then generate or yield or result in the 7th. So 6 steps of contemplations result in the 7th. And let me go through those, and then let me go through the fourfold, and let me show you how they're all combined, and let me synthesize today's post. Join me on a quick expresso shot ride of the development of Bodhichitta according to Asanga. Remember that all living beings has once been our kind mother. In the vast expanse of time and space, they have all occupied the role of mother, and they have all been near and dear and kind. And then remember that kindness. That kindness is what makes the world turn around. That kindness is what gives us our mind and our bodies, and even just this breath and everything else that nurtures it. It is the energy that has been put into the system. They have all been infinitely kind. If not for them, we wouldn't even be here. Then on the basis of that kindness, the strong wish to repay it, not out of some sense of obligation, but just sense of wanting naturally, because they've been infinitely kind to feed us, we want to feed them. Because they've clothed us, we want to clothe them. It is now our turn to be a parent for them. It is now our turn to reciprocate, and in reciprocating, it brings so much joy. As a result of the joy of reciprocation, then we have a closeness, a sense of affection with all living beings, even the near and dear ones. Of course, even the strangers have been converted into dear ones, and even the most challenging ones, we even have more patience for them, just like we do at the Thanksgiving table once a year for the extended relatives. Just because they're our real relatives, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Just because they're relatives, we'll create little buffers and a little bit more patience. Imagine all beings coming to the supper table because they are extended relations. They are our relations, and in our relationship with them grows a sense of affection and the wish that they be happy. And on the basis of that affection and proximity and closeness and love, we see their suffering, where they are mired in the hamster wheel of the hallucination of self-imposed suffering, and out of that, all the devastating acts of violence and resentment and greed. And we realize that horrible predicament is not just out there. We can't cut them off. We can't send them away. We can't exile them. We can't banish them. Whatever is in them that's polluting their mind and disturbing their mind and creating devastation and destruction is also within us, so that we have great compassion for them. We have great compassion for them. And then it dawns on us, because we have so much affinity and affection and a compassion, then we sense ourselves wanting to do something. I mean, if you walk near someone who's suffering, there's something deep in the human condition that pulls us, draws us, compels us to want to do something for their predicament. It's natural. It's a natural part of our wiring. We see the mirror neurons of the tears in their eyes or their distended belly because they haven't had enough to eat, and we want to do something. Even just a little creature, a puppy's trapped in a drain, or a kitten in a tree, we want to do something for them. And so for all living beings, the existential predicament of their hallucination driven by the atmagraha, hand grenade at their heart, we want to do something for them. And then the rude awakening, it dawns on us what little we can actually do. what little ultimate effect we can have on living beings whilst we're still compelled by our own hallucination. And so there, on the basis of that strong sense of responsibility and duty and firm commitment, we realize there is only truly one way to be of benefit. Now, of course, temporarily benefit we can do. We can do the temporary benefit, and we should do the temporary benefit, but the ultimate benefit of awakening and rousing and helping and supporting people to wake up from their hallucinatory hamster wheel nightmare, only that can happen by way of our own liberation, only when we're totally awake and fully skilled and immensely compassionate and no longer triggered by the hairpin triggers of our own hand grenade at our own heart. Only then will we have a full capacity, a full array of skill to intervene in awakening and rousing people from the nightmare. And so only there is the generation of bodhicitta. There and then, that wish to awaken for the benefit of living beings is the seventh step. It is the result of the prior six reflections. Want to go backwards? The wish to awaken for the benefit of all living beings is dependent on the prior step, which is the responsibility. I will be the one to help them, even though I can't. How did you get there? Well, strong compassion got you there. Strong compassion got you. How did you get to strong compassion? Strong love and affection and affinity. And how did you get there? The reflection on the kindness and wanting to repay the kindness. And how did you get there? The establishment of a sense that they all have all been infinitely kind. And how did you get there? The recognition that they're all at one time or another been your mothers. This is Asanga's 7-step cause and effect method. How wonderful is that? Now Shantideva's fourfold exchange of self and other, a completely discrete training regimen that ends in the same direction, bodhicitta. How do we get there? First, equalize self and other. We are all wanting happiness. None of us wants to suffer. We are all equally prone to social stresses, the destructive forces of greed and jealousy and pride and hatred and resentment and anger. We are all afflicted that way. Nobody's special. No one's exempt. We're all sensitive creatures. We all occupy this space on this planet. We all interact infinitely in interrelationality forevermore and since beginningless time. And in that way, we are all the same. We are all equally deserving of love. Second reflection then is the contemplation on the detriments of self-preoccupation. Since beginningless time, we have suffered. How is it? How is it that corporate greed has dominated the planet? How is it that we've chopped down nearly every tree, destroyed every habitat of every living creature, overfished the oceans, barely had definitely have enough food on the planet to feed people, but can't actually feed them? Why is it that all these problems exist? Why is there so much depression, so much alienation, so much anxiety? It all comes down to the atmagraha, habit of clinging and self-making, the separate self-making apparatus, the tendency, subtle tendency, instinct in the mind to grab hold of reality and make it discrete and therefore chase it and therefore protect it. That is worth our contemplation. Then from there, the contemplation on the benefits of altruism, just do the inverse and see all the successes of human relations, all the magic moments, all the triumphs. Where do they come from? They're not discrete, random acts. They all have their origins in love and compassion. We succeed not as separate individuals. We succeed because of being sensitive and because of being thoughtful and of the moments when the sense of separateness erodes, and through it the sun rays of love and compassion can shine through. That is worth our contemplation of just how powerful a medicine compassion is. Now we get to today's step, which is the exchanging of self and other. But before I get to the exchanging of self and other, you would have noticed on the few last posts we've kind of combined both training methods, almost fusing them into one single art form. And so when we think about the detriments of self-preoccupation or self-enclosure, atmagraha, then we see that in others, and we then can take on their suffering with that much more spacious of mind. We can Use the breath on the inhale. Take on their suffering. You could even just use the breath to interrupt your reactivity to someone who's in suffering, or someone who's being aggressive, or someone who's being violent, or someone who's acting out of the hallucination nightmare of their hamster wheel making apparatus. We can take on their suffering. We have the flexibility, the deep understanding, the wisdom to know what's really happening, as Christ said, not to judge the person, but to judge the action. There we can take on suffering. And then in the reflection on the contemplation on the benefits of altruism, we can exhale. We can give love, we can give compassion, we can share joy, we can recycle joy, we can keep it in circulation, we can keep the currency of kindness in circulation. So these are mounted on the breath in a very amazing practice called giving and taking, tonglen. I'm sure you've heard of it. If you haven't, it's a phenomenal practice, very black belt for sure. But here it is fused and interspersed in our mutual mixing of training regimens, ingenious synthesis of Lama Tsongkhapa to combine both lists of 7 and 4 into a single art form. So today's contemplation is on exchanging self and other. Exchanging self and other. What does it mean? It means to replace the orbit of Atmagraha that we have been orbiting around our hearts, self-enclosed since beginningless time, to change it, to inverse our heart, and to make the world of we-ness, the world of usness, the world of you-ness, the centrifugal force, the gravitational pull of our reality, to exchange self-enclosure for altruism as the predominant modus operandi of our being. That is what a Buddha is, someone who has evolved to such a high degree that their sensitivity extends past the skin bag to include not only all living beings, but the worlds and infinite universes. They are the universe, and so that everything in their purview becomes them. Just like you see your own hands as your hands, the world is your hands, the universe is your hands, the rivers are your arteries, the continents are your organs, the world is you, and you are the world. That's where we're going. How do you do that? In moments, small moments of taking in the suffering and giving love, just like mounting those on your breath. Taking in the suffering and giving love. Shantideva has this wonderful way of putting it. If my toe gets stubbed and is injured, my hand doesn't think twice. It reaches down to aid it, because it doesn't know the difference between the toe and the hand. It's one unity organ. It's one organism. And so it's a delusion to think we're separate. It's a delusion to think we're separate. When another suffers, we don't want praise, we don't want an accolade, we don't want a trophy, we just want to alleviate it simply, as Shantideva says, simply because it is suffering. How do you get there? Small moments. People are irritated. Just secretly under the microscope or under the radar, take in their suffering. Just inhale. And as you're inhaling, wishing, just beginning to wish that being over there. You can't help necessarily. You might try, you should try, but you might not be able to do it. But this is altering the instinct. When you inhale, this could be mid-conversation. They're telling you their sorrows and you're just inhaling. Sometimes I do this in therapy. Maybe nothing you can do to alleviate their temporary situation right now, but you just inhale, take on the suffering. And then you have more joy than you think. You have more equilibrium than you think. You have more abundance than you think. Share it. Exhale. Don't tell them you're doing this. Just exhale. Give the love. You're not in a trauma cycle right now. When they are, that's what they need. They just need to know that this is temporary and that they can get out of this circumstance. And since you're like a lifeguard on the outside with a buoy life jacket and life preserver for them, just hang around them. Inhale, take their suffering. Exhale, give your care and give your joy. And you do that very microscopically, and over time, over the course of evolution, it reverses the gravitational pull of the meanness that has occupied your being since beginningless time. A very potent reflection, the final reflection of Shantideva's 4-point, which gets us to this sense of universal responsibility, exchanging self and other. Point or step 22 of the Awakening in 30 Steps. All best wishes.